Hello and thanks for checking out ChartGuys.com. We're proud to be one of the most successful technical analysis communities online, teaching you the skills to become a more confident, effective, and informed trader. Join our community of hundreds of analysts worldwide working together to learn the charts, generate profit, and achieve financial independence. For access to daily live chart analysis and market coverage, a thriving chat community, along with dozens of hours of exclusive educational materials. We look forward to seeing you. Let's check out some charts. Hello MJ traders, checking in on the sector. We got a whole bunch of tickers. We're going to start the week off with a bunch of them. I'll trim some down for tomorrow's video, but just want to cover the sector as a whole because there are some shifts going on, especially on names that I had no interest in because of how weak they are. Now we're seeing some bounce follow through, so they're getting my attention again. Extraction plays getting attention. So we'll start it off with CGC, which is still in the pattern of a lower high every single day for 10 days in a row now. I did make an initial trade attempt first thing this morning. And what I did was wait for the low of the day to be set at 1902 and patiently waited the first 2 minutes. And once we broke the high of the day, 9:15, I made an entry, put my stop at $19 and was stopped out a 15-cent loss or so, which is perfectly acceptable. I was looking for some bounce follow through, which we obviously did not get. Hourly oversold bounce into the end of the day is just looking for an hourly lower high to be set. We need an hourly trend change for any kind of meaningful bounce on the daily chart. We did fill a gap here at 1880, and weekly consolidation is now clearly underway. We are looking for a weekly higher low compared to 1381, and we know that going into 2020, what we have to see happen is 1381 hold and a bull break of 2225. At this point, we're about $3.50 off of that high, and we are about $6, make that $5 above the low. So not quite at the 50% retracement mark, and this is still favoring bulls for a weekly higher low, that is. It's not favoring bulls for a weekly trend change, it's favoring bulls for a weekly higher low, and from there, it's up to the bulls to show up with increasing bull volume and change the weekly trend. So again, we are not going to sleep on Canadian MJ bulls to start 2020. The setup is clear, we know what is needed, now we just need follow through. That being said, short term, have to break the pattern of a lower high every single day, and even when that pattern does break, we will just be looking for a daily lower high compared to 2225. So I'm interested in that little bull move. Once that shift does happen, whether it's a change in the hourly trend or just a break of the lower high pattern, but no sign of it just yet. APHA, bear break of 473 at the end of the day here. Not a ton of follow through, but the bear volume started to show up the second half of the day where it got notable. So that's a daily lower high at 504 and lower low now. Next support is 463, but the weekly consolidation, just like CGC, is now underway, and it's a very clear inverse head and shoulders setup. Burden of proof is on the bulls. We know what is needed. Now the bulls need to seize the opportunity, and it might come off of earnings. So earnings is approaching for APHA, and we've seen bullish reactions in the past to the sector, and that is going to dictate whether or not we set our weekly higher low. A bullish reaction to earnings and the weekly higher low is set, and we're looking right back up at 561. With a bearish reaction, we're going to be looking down at the low of 376. Last reaction we saw was bullish. Last two we've seen has been bullish, so bulls are hopeful. Cron was a weak name today. Daily lower high is set at 715. And if we see a bear break of 656, it's a daily lower high and lower low. After 656, we're just looking at the low of 637 and 604. Again, we want to see the sector moving as a whole. So I'm checking in on some of these weaker names, not because I have any interest in playing them like TLRY, but because I know that the sector sentiment is not going to see a clear and notable shift as long as some of the bigger names are in free fall, specifically at all-time lows. So Cron does not have the same weekly setup right now. It's not nearly as clear. We're not even close to weekly exponential resistance, and we're looking right back down at 604. So 637 and 604, I would have to see the bulls hold 637 and break 757 for the bulls to prove anything to me in the short term. ACB remains weak. It held, let's see, our low was 190. We actually broke that by a couple pennies. So a bear break, 188 and 180 psychological are supports. Anything under 197 is a lower high. 197 was the high of the Friday afternoon bounce and the high of today's day, rejecting right off that level. TLRY is an absolute free fall. Daily oversold conditions. When we bounce, we're just looking for a daily lower high. It's been a lower high every single day for 10 days in a row. Same pattern as CGC. The setup was just much different in terms of where we were coming from. Complete control of the bears, and we are not going to see the sector shift until the weakest names can find some kind of a base. OGI, bear break. Only support is $2 on OGI. Anything under 253 is just a daily lower high. Hexo, only support is 148. If that breaks, we're back in free fall on Hexo. Weakest names right now, Hexo, ACB, TLRY in the Canadian MJ space. Those names, bigger names, those names must shift momentum. VFF, big bear drop, no follow through from the bullish notable bull day from Friday. Looking at it on the weekly perspective, inside bar last week, broke that resistance by a few pennies to start today, but zero follow through and closing down at the low of the day. I personally don't have any interest on VFF until we can see some clear momentum shifts. We have not seen 2 strong green days in a row since back at the end of November. Now onto the extraction plays. They are getting some attention. So labs, we noted the bull break of 391 was great after building that base of 332, but we are also coming right off of 333 support, so looking for a daily higher low wouldn't necessarily be a big red flag. Currently healthy hourly consolidation. If we break the low of today, tomorrow of 385, then the daily pullback to find that higher low is underway. Weekly chart, bigger picture, low, high, higher low, and we would be scouting a lower high on the weekly chart compared to 547 into the start of 2020 if we can see some more bull follow through. Oils. So I'm never going to play oils because of its volume. It's a penny stock, very low volume, but it's notable because 26 support held, and if the bulls can break 37, it's a very notable change in momentum. 37 is the highest price that we've seen in months, and if we double bottom and then break that level, it'll be a good sign for the bulls, potentially giving us a bounce on the monthly perspective. Still proving to do. If we reject from 37, we'll need another higher low compared to 26.5. VLNS, also in the extraction space. I'm interested here because of, again, the weekly time frame. So we've got low, high, higher, low. Have to break 356 and 358, our double top. If we cannot do so in the next couple weeks, and if we lose the daily uptrend without doing so, we have plenty of space for a daily higher low. But if we look 2 weeks out, and if we lose the daily uptrend without breaking 358, we will have a weekly equilibrium here as well. So we know we're watching the potential weekly equilibrium in labs. This one's a bit more developed. It's just a question of whether or not we reject from resistance. So that's Canadian MJ. Weekly higher lows on watch for CGC and APHA. No sign of them being set. Tons of weakness in TLRY, Hexo, and ACB. The sector as a whole definitely needs a big boost. APHA earnings approaching. IIPR. Big pullback, dividend distribution also impacting the price. I'm looking at it as a 4-hour equilibrium. So we've got our low, high of the bull move. We're scouting a higher low compared to 69.61. And then we would scout a lower high compared to 79.69. So we're scouting a 4-hour equilibrium, which means watching for a 4-hour higher low based off of that support. If we see weakness tomorrow morning, hourly RSI will fairly quickly be oversold. And hourly RSI oversold off of 69.61 wouldn't be necessarily a bad setup. Curaleaf, a little bit of follow through today, but didn't close with a whole bunch of strength. Hourly chart, we had the high of the day, higher low, lower high, and a tightening range into the end of the day. If we break 769 tomorrow, we're then in an hourly downtrend, which means we may need another daily higher low to form. Just like most names, I'm interested in weekly time frames because the daily time frames aren't doing much. I need to see a weekly trend change on Curaleaf. And at this point, because of the size of the pullback, bulls are just hoping for a weekly equilibrium. We need to bounce into the low $8 range to start to favor that equilibrium because right now, this bounce size would favor the bears. If the bulls can get up to 815, 820, then we would start to favor that equilibrium as the most likely scenario. Weekly trend changes are needed. CWeb at the low, no support in free fall. So again, the lack of any support here as we head to all-time lows is a very big red flag, obviously for individuals looking at CWeb and the individual company, but USMJ wants to see all names have some kind of support. Free fall is not a good look for anybody in the sector. TRUL broke the high of the bounce 1430 and 1430. We broke that Friday. Not a ton of follow through. Bulls got that follow through today. Big day for TRUL. Healthy hourly consolidation into the end of the day. And I would now be watching for a daily lower high to be set compared to 1650, but a big recovery of 20+% off of that low. And anything on the daily chart above 1360 will keep the daily uptrend intact from here. And we're just looking for a weekly lower high. And bulls are hoping for a weekly equilibrium here as well. Keep an eye out for news. So there is a ballot, the only ballot measure that could make the 2020 vote in November for legalization of marijuana in Florida. They had about 350,000 signatures, maybe 400,000. They needed 766,000, and they need it by January 1st. So everybody I know in Florida is getting these pamphlets in the mail in their last-ditch effort. Right now, I would say probability is maybe 40% that this is going to make it on the ballot. Even if it's 50%, that means the market is not pricing it in. So if they can pull it off, MedMen's been pouring a bunch of money into this initiative. A lot of people don't like this initiative because it limits, you can't grow yourself. It definitely favors companies. But I'm surprised more companies weren't pouring money into this effort to get 766,000 signatures in a population of 55 million people. That's besides the point. Bottom line is, these signatures need to be submitted by January 1st, so we're going to find out early January if they failed to reach the accurate number, I should say the required number. If they did reach it, it's going to take a little longer to hear back from them, in my opinion, because the votes are going to have to be counted, and the deadline to have them counted is February 1st. So it's going to get interesting. It could potentially be a bullish headline if we do get news that it will be on the 2020 ballot, because that is prime time 2020 hype is Florida for USMJ. And if that's out of the picture, not all hope is lost. There'll still be a bunch of states, but it won't have the firepower that that Florida would have. IAN, still just sideways, building a base. Need to break 180 for the daily trend change. Close at the high of the day 3 days in a row, but need some follow through after 180 is $2 as the bulls attempt to shift their short-term momentum. OH continues to be a star. Daily trend change with notable follow-through. 550 is the only resistance nearby. The vote for the updated conditions of the deal is going through, I believe, tomorrow. Might be a day or two off. Short term. And I would expect the discount, which as of yesterday was 8%, probably right around the same. I would expect the discount to shrink a few percent once that vote passes. It's anticipated it'll pass, but once it passes, I would expect the discount to shrink a bit. So what we're watching is 550 resistance, and we know we will need a clear weekly higher low and higher high for a clear trend change, but bulls creating as much space as possible before we look for a higher low to then form. CL, big bull move, 885 breaking would be very notable. 885, 888, 885, 889, quadruple top. Break that level, and it'll be the highest price in months. And that would only benefit OH as well, as they are joined to the hip to a certain degree. It would be the highest price in 3 months if we can break that level. If we fail, daily equilibrium will be on watch. MedMen's dumping, only play is off the all-time low. I would need to see the price closer to that support to be making a play off of that. But again, if I'm bullish TRUL and Curaleaf, I want to see MedMen stop the bleeding. And right now they're struggling to do so. Clear hourly downtrend the last few days. GTII, solid bull move. weekly time frame equilibrium setup. So low, high, higher, low. Anything under 1359 is a lower high and would be a tightening range. Looks a bit like a falling wedge. Right at that resistance. So let's see if we get the weekly equilibrium. 1359 is the key level. And Harv is showing up with some green recently after being a lead USMJ bear. 412 is the highest price in months. And why I say the highest price in months, why that matters, is because you can just imagine anybody that has gone short in the last 3 months is then underwater. That's why breaking the highest price in a certain period of time, the longer the better, is obviously a good thing. If we break the highest price in a week, that's great, but breaking the highest price in 3 months is much more meaningful. So you can consider this a double bottom at 270 and 267, but anything under 412 is just a lower high. So there's some shifts, nothing notable, nothing screaming the bottom is in. We know what's needed on the major names of CGC and APHA. We know what's needed on Curaleaf. And we'll see if the bulls can follow through in Q1 2020. I believe the most important sector event will be APHA earnings approaching. Aside from that, whether or not Florida gets to vote on legalization in November 2020 is probably the most important factor short term for USMJ plays. So that's where we stand in the sector as a whole. And we will continue to check back in, watching patiently. Patiently being the key word. Extraction plays, some shifts in USMJ, weekly consolidation underway in Canadian MJ, market consolidation underway the last couple days, not really seeing any notable, significant bearish correlation there. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. We'll see you tomorrow.
Hey, get at it!